Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is One Finger Death Punch. What a great name for a video game. That is about as video game a name as you could possibly get without tacking on Reckoning at the end. It's by a company called Silver Dollar Games. You probably haven't heard of them, and rightfully so, because a lot of the stuff they've produced, and they've produced a huge amount of video games, were sort of throwaway web titles. And now, along comes One Finger Death Punch, released on Xbox Live Indie as well as Steam. And I gotta say, most of the stuff that ends up on the Xbox Live Indie marketplace is not particularly good. However, now we have One Finger Death Punch that is saying to everybody, you can do quite a lot with 2 mouse buttons. So let's have a look at it, shall we? So what's the point of One Finger Death Punch? Well, it's a brawler of sorts, except you only have 2 buttons. You have punch left and punch right. And it almost reminds me of a rhythm game, more so than anything else, but rather than being a sort of gimmicky rhythm game where there's music in the background, you're just kind of keeping along in time with the beat, the rhythm comes in the fighting, and you get this really interesting one-to-one response where every click is an attack. Doesn't sound all that interesting until you actually get to play it. Now, if I was to criticize something initially, it would be that the options menu is basically non-existent, although when you see the graphic style, you might see why. It does not have rebindable keys, although it does have 4 separate sets of key bindings. So there are only 2 buttons in the game, so you can use your mouse or 3 different sets of keys, which is reasonable, I guess. That should be fine. And the resolution options are limited to a sort of 720p windowed mode, plus full screen, and a couple of other slightly larger ones. Bit limited, I gotta say. But let's get into the game. Show you what's going on with this. So the survival mode and levels. Levels have 3 difficulty modes, as you can see here, so there's quite a lot to play. It has perhaps the most hideous screen transition in history. I mean, the whole thing looks very, very old, doesn't it? It's gonna look even older when you see what's going on with this. Alright. One Finger Death Punch, ladies and gents. Let's do just that. So, I was talking about one-to-one response. Well, every time you click, you attack, yeah? So, what you gotta do is you have to attack while being in range of an enemy. And every time the 2 little attack zones at the bottom light up, that means that you are within range of an enemy. And I'm messing up already. And that will result in you being able to attack them. However, the ranges change depending on how well you're doing, so you're able to do ranged attacks with various weapons that you pick up. If you combo enough, you end up having like kind of a charge move, which allows you to zoom forward. Aside from that, there are certain enemies which dodge, there are enemies which take multiple hits, there are enemies which also have a so-called brawl attached to them. Meaning that in order to beat them, you've got to go into this little brawl where you've got to tap the right keys in the right order. At the right times. So that's pretty much as far as the mechanics go, and they introduce some things like passive skills. For instance, I got a skill that allows me, whenever I pick up a bow, to fire 3 shots instead of 1. So it's very, very simple. But it also feels fan-goddamn-tastic. It's one of those titles where you feel like everything you've done has a massive impact. And that's something that only a few games really pull off well. Asura's Wrath is a good example of that. That game really is almost nothing more than a big QuickTime event. And yet you feel like what you've done in relation to the buttons that you've hammered on the screen, has resulted in awesome stuff happening. And that is exactly how you feel in One Finger Death Punch. But here's the thing about One Finger Death Punch, because every attack has a significant impact, i.e., each punch will kill a normal guy in 1 hit, and if you miss, then you're gonna take damage, the whole game ends up being just this moment-to-moment unbelievably satisfying brawl fest. Shockingly satisfying. And it looks basic, incredibly basic. I mean, it's just a stick man in the background, but as it turns out, that actually means that the animation feedback that you get on every move is really, really good. And they combine that with just the right amount of slow-mo, hit sparks, and really great visual and audio feedback every time you do something. And once you start getting on a roll, once you start getting a good combo going and you unlock more abilities and powers and you're able to attack further across the screen and do more damage and then pick up something and smash an enemy with it, get a couple of ranged weapons, do a little bit of kung fu with a staff or a sword, to pick up a bomb. There's even that ball that you saw earlier that I was able to kick around. Do things like that, for God's sake. This is incredibly fun. I mean, come the hell on. It is so much fun. And it's ludicrous that you can break things down to this point, but it's not the first game to have done it, of course. It reminds me of a single-player kind of brawler version of dive kicks. Like, let's take the brawling experience back to its bare minimum. Pure skill reliance and really satisfying brawling mechanics that are simple yet effective and reward skillful play. We'll even strip down the graphics so the only thing you're seeing is this pure brawl, this pure fight. And purity is a way that I would describe this, honestly. There is a certain purity to the mechanics, because they're extremely simple. But they're very, very effective and enjoyable. There's a lot of replayability in the levels, in the sense that you really want to go back and get a perfect on as many levels as possible, let's be honest. As misses are punished, and you don't get the right medal, and if you miss as well, you'll also end up getting hit, so you give up your perfect. And you just have this desire to destroy the level in the most stylish way possible. And it's weird, because a lot of games try and make you feel like a kung fu master, like this absolute god of martial arts. And stupidly enough, something this simple is one of the best games that have managed to pull that off. Just incredible. There's also a lot of variety, surprisingly enough, considering there are only 2 buttons, because they vary up the rounds and conditions every single time. So this is the kind of lightsaber round, or light sword round, as it reminds you. And you are able to just slaughter as many guys as possible. There are certain rounds where the enemies will dodge to the other side. There are rounds where it's kind of a ranged weapon-based round. You saw the round earlier, which was a smash round. There are full-on boss fights involved in this as well, which are hella fun. Explosions going on in the background. Stick figures coming to pieces. This shouldn't be as fun as it is. It has no right to, but it's one of the most responsive games I've ever played. And it makes sense, really. I mean, come on, they cut down the mechanics to the point where it can't help but be responsive. It's all about just how responsive and how direct every single button press is. Instantly, your character reacts every time you hit the button. And that's required, because there's no way in a million years the game would work otherwise. Every time you do better, it increases the speed of the game. Things get even more ridiculous. Every time. And yet precision is required. It tells you time and again, you cannot button mash. And you're damn right you can't button mash. If you button mash, you will lose. It really is as simple as that. You'll miss, you won't get your perfect. That'll be disappointing for you, and of course you'll lose health and eventually die. You can only take 10 hits. And this is on the first difficulty level. You get a lot of different unlocks. You should have a look at these guys. You know, it's weird because I looked through their back catalog and I thought, oh god, this looks like a shovelware producer. Like, they've made a lot of really dodgy games, including stuff involving, I think, like dating sims or something along those lines. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I'm pretty sure they made a game about farting as well, which is, I suppose, considering the recent release of South Park, now entirely acceptable in the mainstream. But they made this, and it is blowing my mind right now. It's so much fun. It's one of those games that you can describe as cheap and cheerful, and yet such a ridiculously good idea that I'm really surprised that I haven't seen more of that. Again, I think Dive Kick is probably just another example of purity when it comes to game mechanics. You know, let's just take the game mechanics down to their bare minimum, and yet let's still keep the skill ceiling high and keep things enjoyable and satisfying. And oh, this game is satisfying. I've described games in the past as having fuck yeah moments. This game is one gigantic fuck yeah moment. Everything you do in One Finger Death Punch feels incredible. It's the kind of game you can play for a couple of minutes, so you can just keep smashing through the levels, go on to the next difficulty level, do survival, try and beat your scores, things like that. And I think that I actually love it. Like, I really do. I genuinely love it. It's so stupid to get, I suppose, enthusiastic about a game which really is nothing more than clicking the right buttons in the right order, but isn't that what brawlers are anyway? If you break it down, isn't that a brawler in a nutshell? And yeah, I suppose it is. Except One Finger Death Punch just kind of throws away the pretense of being anything more and gives you this frantic, incredible brawling experience where the direct feedback and the responsiveness is second to none. Holy hell. This is great. This is better than great. It's amazing. I want to beat the game. I want to get the next difficulty level. I want to do better and better and better. I want to become a god at this title, even though you feel like a god every time you do anything in it anyway. Jeez. One Finger Death Punch is brilliant. Absolutely awesome. But I should criticize it, because that's kind of my job. What would I criticize? Mostly it's just down to production value and art assets. Things like the screen transitions are pretty hideous. Ooh. Okay, we're gonna be hitting him 3 times. There we go. Get that speed up. That's what I like to see. But you can't bash the button. If you do, then you are kind of screwed. Oh, I missed the ball as well. That's disappointing. There we go. That's what I like to see. Don't bash the button. Feels good, though. Feels good. Yeah, the art is fairly easy to criticize. The options menu is fairly easy to criticize. It's not like the PC port's bad. I mean, the whole gameplay is just fine with the left and right mouse buttons, for God's sake, and it almost seems like it's at home on the mouse, even though you can use the keys if you want to. And that's kind of about it, you know? It's hard to criticize a limited concept when the limited concept works so damn well. Oh, yeah! Just so good! Oh, wow. Why am I getting hyped up over some $4 indie stick fighting game? Because it's that damn fun, that's why. It's that damn fun. Oh, yeah. I love the amount of variety in the levels as well. It's like, hey, we've got limited mechanics and we're kind of all about doing the same thing, but let's vary the levels up so you're always having different experiences. And some of them are just bite-size. Like, you can do it in 10 seconds or whatever. But, yeah, One Finger Death Punch. You should pick this up. Like, you really, really should. It's so cheap. It's so fun. I have no doubt that some people are going to get incredibly good at it, and on the Grandmaster levels, it will be really enjoyable to watch. I think even, like, I would love to watch this being played. It's so visually satisfying. There's so much crazy stuff going up on the screen. Crank it up. Let's go a little bit faster. There we go. Oh, yeah. I just love the pursuit of perfection you can go after with a title like this. So you can beat the levels, but you want to go and do it again because you know you could have done it better. You just know it. You could have missed less. You could have got your rhythm better. You could have got a couple more combos. You could have picked up that other weapon or kicked the ball in the right direction. Yeah. I love the announcer as well. Stereotypical and ridiculous, but the announcer, it really adds a lot of flavor to it. It really gives you that lovely, cheesy Kung Fu B-movie feel. And the epic music in the background is not at all out of place. It's just silly. We need to do that again. That was terrible. We'll do a way better job. Way better job at the multi-round. I have no hesitation whatsoever in recommending One Finger Death Punch. I really don't. It's an incredibly satisfying and fun experience that does one thing really, really, really well. Yeah? Really well. And that is a reason to pick a title up, especially at a price that is so damn low.
Your enemy is strong. Take your time and focus.
And I'm terrible. But I want to get better.
To advance to the next round.
This is certainly 2014's Fuck Yeah the video game. It's on Steam for $4. It's called One Finger Death Punch. It's just sublime. Hell yes! God, that's so good! Check it out, folks. Please, please, you know, don't dismiss it because of its graphic style. Don't dismiss it because it looks like a web game. Play it because it is satisfying and visceral and responsive and skillful and fun to watch and just laden with cool level variety and all sorts of great enemy gimmicks and this pure kung fu experience. Play it for those reasons. My name has been TotalBiscuit, loving One Finger Death Punch. Thank you very much for watching. Yeah! I'll see you next time.